Your sound not good.
Let's try a restart.
Let's try that. Better?
Yes,
Okay.
super.
Sorry I'm late, guys. As you guys know, someone changed my schedule. And so today I've been trying to figure out what we're going to talk about today because we're in our final class of ACI 11, 12, excuse me. And trying to figure out what would be interesting to teach today. You know, usually with review classes, we go through some of the content and then we kind of maybe do a Q&A, which is what we're going to do. But I wanted to start off at the beginning. First of all, thank you for some of the cameras that are on right now. I appreciate it. But what I wanted to do today is go into a little bit more depth on Shanti Deva's 10th chapter, the dedication chapter. We didn't spend very much time on it in last class. It was just sort of half of a it's like half of a class which I condensed down into about 15 minutes. And then, which really at the end of the day, dedication is as important as anything else we do. And what that means is, okay, we're going to go on a tangent. So just hold on, and then we'll bring it back together. On a day-to-day basis, you know, you do your normal life. Yeah, some of you come to ACI classes, some of you come to a lot of ACI classes. Some of you are working ACI classes all day long. You know, and you're out in the world, right? And all the other times. But even when you're in an ACI class, you can think of it too. But what do you do with the karma you've already committed? And that sounds so nasty to say it that way. The karma you have committed, the deed you have done. It sounds so moralistic. But what do you do with the things that are already, what do you do with the things that are already in play? Right? Looks like Yasheng is on a subway somewhere, right? She's out Looks kind of cold in Taiwan. By the way, I decided I'm coming to Taiwan after Kyoto. I'll be there from the 16th to the 21st of December. Oh, you're in London. Well, that's why it looks so damn cold. So, what do you do with your life as like if you're on the subway, if you are at work, or you're with your parents, which is usually karmically difficult? Doesn't matter how much you love each other, like it's karmically difficult to be with your parents. Or maybe your parents aren't around anymore and you're still having a relationship with them. Um, with your partner, or a whole host of other normal day-to-day life things. What do you do in the face of all of those? Like how do these teachings come to you? Like when you're having an argument, when someone is annoying you, when someone's annoying you and not apologizing, right? And all you want is an apology, but you don't get it, right? Like how do you what's the orientation your mind should be in? Right? We always talk about what you should do, what you shouldn't do. But I like to think of things more. I like to, how do I say this? How do we develop these attitudes in our mind so that it's no longer a studied thing, right? Where we're no longer just reading the books, doing our homeworks, being like, I should do the 4 steps, I should do the 4 powers, right? How does it transition from, let's say, intellectual knowledge? How do you transition from intellectual knowledge into a natural, that's not quite the right word, but let's use it for now, a natural attitude? Like your mind and your orientation, your attitude towards the world is just different. It's automatically that way. Like it's automatically, you're almost arising as a different person, right? Than the person you were when you started. I had someone said to me last night something like, you just seem different, Tim. And I'm like, different good or different bad? Right? Like, what do you mean? And they started telling me the differences they noticed, and I'm like, that's interesting because I don't notice. Like I didn't notice the difference. But I started thinking about like, well, what is different? Right? What is different about all of this? And that's what got me thinking about like Shanti Deva and these attitudes. Like what attitudes, it's like when you first start studying, you're wearing, like you put on the clothes, right? You're like you go to your first corporate job and they're like, oh, you have to wear a suit, right? You have to wear really formal clothes. You have to wear a tie every day. And you're like, I don't even know how to tie a tie, right? I don't even know how to do it. So you go to a store and you buy a suit and it doesn't fit. It looks stupid on you, right? Because, formal clothes are generally meant to be tailored, right? And so then you go to YouTube and you figure out how to tie a tie, right? So you put all this stuff on for the first time and you look in the mirror and you don't wear the clothes very well, but you're like, this is my first day on the job. Damn it, I'm going to go, right? Your tie's kind of crooked. You don't know how to tuck the shirt in. The clothes are really, too big. when you get on the subway and everyone's kind of looking at you weird because it's like, oh, he's never put on a suit before. He doesn't even know how to walk in a suit, right? You know, I've tried high heels, women, I have no idea how you do it, right? Same, like put on high heels for the first time and you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, how do you walk in these things, right? By the way, it's fun. Never mind. We'll talk about that later. But the point is that you're not comfortable at first, right? You're not comfortable. So, but you try to look the part. Like you try to be a bodhisattva, right? He's like, oh, I'm going to go take care of all living beings. You know, I have this wish. I have this wish to be totally enlightened. I learned it in a class last week, right? And now I'm going to be a bodhisattva. Great, right? I'm going to be a bodhisattva. Wonderful. And so you start trying to do things that you think that bodhisattvas do, right? And you went to a class and you're like, that teacher's kind of cool. They taught me how to be a bodhisattva, right? And then it's just like wearing an oversized suit or putting on high heels for the first time. You're like, you kind of look like it, but everybody knows. Everybody knows that you have no idea what you're doing. um, and you feel weird too, right? Like it's just like this isn't my normal like t-shirt and sweatpants, right? These aren't my normal shoes. Women have a double. They have to put on suits and put on shoes, right? There's all these fashion things that people are supposed to do. So how does one move from the like day one and then move to a person where those attitudes just become natural, right? Where you don't, it's not uncomfortable to put those clothes on. You actually kind of want to. Although I don't know why anyone would want to wear, it's just a metaphor, right? But you just want to look a certain way. You understand like, what that person is. Like, what is that person who arises naturally as that person, right? Put someone in a suit for 20 years and 30 years, and become my grandfather who retired and still wore his suit every day in the house, right? He sat on the couch in a suit every day. He'd get up, take a shower, wear a suit, go to the store, buy the newspaper, come back, read it, have a breakfast. He had this rhythm. He never didn't wear it. So how do we get to that place where you never don't not wear your bodhisattva clothes? We need a clothing line now. We can make some money off of this. They had a really successful clothing line in YSI about 14 years ago, if anyone cares. What does that process look like, right? And where are you in that process, right? Where are you in it? And how is it, and how does it feel to be in it? Like, because at first everyone gets really excited. It's true. Everyone gets super excited. Like, I'm going to do this thing. I found a teacher. I'm going to try to become a better person, which is a motivation that's inside of you. There's no one, I mean, it's very difficult to teach somebody the bodhisattva motivation. Like, if you come to this class on a regular basis, there has to be some kind of motivation inside of you. There has to be, right? Why would you come to 12 weeks every week, listen to someone on Zoom, right? If you didn't have the motivation yourself, you know. I have an idea. I have to check my notes for something. Make sure I don't screw it up. This is from a class a long time ago. So hold on a second here. Mm-hmm. All right. This is going to take too long to find. I'll do my best. I just won't give you the Tibetan. That's all. If anyone wants to find the 3 types of faith in Tibetan, go for it. And then let me know what they are. So what happens in the beginning is you have a kind of, what do we say? Let's call it like a kind of admiration, right? Nope, not those faiths. That is 3 types of faith, yes, Octavian, but not the faith I'm asking for. They're in the Yoga Sutra. Shraddha, yep. And it's spelled Depa in Tibetan. That's fine. Just give me a second. I'll actually just look for it. All right. All right. Let's look it up. Let's look it up in the ACIP database. Let's look. Not in Buddhist. Where are you? Let's go there. Let's save. Where? We're going to teach you guys how. I'm going to teach you all how to use this someday. Never turn, not that one. Let's look for a different word. Once you learn how to use the database, you can find pretty much anything really quickly. Let's see here. Not that. Of course, when I'm trying to do it in front of everybody, it doesn't work. Yeah, it's not going to work right now. De Pasum. Yep, those are the 3 things. Good job, Roxana. Thank you. Excellent. Good job, Roxana. Found it faster than me. Good. So in the chat, there's 3 kinds of faith, right? And how do we get to those 3 types? All right. And how do we, it's sort of, how do we become a bodhisattva where you just are that, where your clothes go from outer to inner? And that your attitude, like this bathing, right? You're kind of bathed in it. You're wrapped in it. It's like a shroud, right? It covers you. It like absorbs into you. Someone wants to say hi. these are the people. Look. She's like, whatever. How does it like if you put the sugar in the coffee, right? At first, when you pour the sugar in, it just goes to the bottom, right? And then you start stirring it up, and then it's not yet sweet, and then you keep stirring, and eventually that sugar dissolves into the coffee, and you can't separate them, even if you tried. Can't take the sugar back out of the water. Yes, just go with the example. Mainly you cannot. So how do we get there? So really the main idea is that there's kind of three steps. Like the first one, we're going to use the word inspiration, right? Like you meet somebody that you're like, I think that person is pretty cool, right? I think that person is something that I want to do myself, which again doesn't come from, just doesn't come from nowhere. Like, and if you really understand what we taught in this class about emptiness, you would understand that inspiration is coming out of a seed, and the fact that there's a teacher in front of you who's teaching you something, that too is coming from a seed, right? It's not like any of this happens in a vacuum. It doesn't just happen, right? It's something that it's coming from your seeds, right? In the first place. But normally that's not how you perceive it. You go, oh, that's cool, right? Something in you is attracted to a bodhisattvic path. And so you meet someone, a teacher, and it doesn't, just because you're in a class doesn't mean that person is your teacher. All right. I've gone to lots of classes and I've learned lots of things from lots of people. And I can see them as a teacher, but they're not necessarily like my perfect glove. Right. And that's something you have to find yourself. Go to different classes. If you're inspired by one teacher, go to another class and see how inspired you are by someone else. Check to see your motivation. Is your motivation one of pure motivation, or do you just happen to be attracted to that teacher? I can say all the stuff today. You just think that teacher's hot, or you're like, oh, I want to date them, and so I'm going to become the best little student they have, and they'll want to date me, right? Check your motivation, okay? Because that doesn't last very long. And if the teacher is worth their salt, that's a good expression, translators. Anything worth their salt. If the teacher's worth their salt, they won't tolerate that very long inside of you, right? Because they can see through it. And it's not a problem. Because like the thing is, it's not a problem to have that attraction. In fact, if you really are attracted to a teacher, it might feel like you're in love with them. Okay. It might feel that way because the love that you can get from a teacher is probably not a love that you've ever experienced before. So just check your motivation, right? And then don't get upset when they don't want to date you. Okay. Those are worldly relationships anyway. Maybe. So, but you have this inspiration, right? You look at them You hear what they have to say. They feel like they have something cool going on. And you kind of look at like who they are and you kind of start checking them out and you're like, this person has something, right? And it has something that I want, right? So that's where we typically all start, right? Something inspires us. Like maybe you heard some teachings, maybe you, I don't know, you just showed up in a class or someone said, hey, let's go to this class. I think this teacher's hot. That's what happens in yoga. Everyone goes to the hot teacher class, right? You're all laughing. And I know, the most popular YSI teachers are the hottest teachers. I know. Okay. But maybe they're using that as a way to attract you into the teachings. And we'll talk about that, not today, but we'll talk about that later. Like, and then, so that's kind of the first step, right? And that's like putting on, and then like the second step, where you kind of have this motivation or this aspiration to then really be like them, right? You're like, I want what they have. Now I'm actually going to find something here. I have something to show you. Da, 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 da. Okay. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Let's try this one again. Well, that's disappointing. All right. Like, apparently YouTube is blocking the scene. I'll tell you what happens. So there's a movie called When Harry Met Sally. Okay. It's a pretty popular movie from 1989, something like that. Yeah, 1989. Oh, look, I made it work. Maybe. Nope. All right. So here's the story. There's a couple, Harry and Sally. They're not a couple yet because it's a romantic comedy, right? And they're sitting in a like Peach Street Cafe. All right. It's kind of like where they're sitting. They're having a breakfast, it looks like. And they're talking about their their sex life. And Harry, who's played by Billy Crystal, he's like, no one has ever faked it with me. Good luck, translators. Meaning, nobody has ever faked an orgasm with me. I can tell. I know when someone's faking. And then Sally in this restaurant proceeds to demonstrate that she takes a bite of her food and she proceeds over like in a minute of this movie to fake an orgasm in the middle of this cafe, right? And she gets like, I mean, she does a really good job. Okay. It's such a funny scene, right? And, you know, Harry's like, oh my God, I can't, she just believes she's doing this. And of course, all the other people in the cafe are like, what is going on, right? So then she's like, she finishes, and then she kind of just like, she looks up at him like, picks up a napkin and like cleans off her mouth from whatever donut she ate or something like that, right? Then the scene shifts to an older woman on the other side of the cafe. And she's there, and a the waiter walks up and says, "Ma'am, what would you like?" And she turns to the lady, looks to the waiter, and says, "I'll have what she's having." Right? She's like, "Whatever you gave her, I want that as well. I want to have that same reaction." Okay. And it's kind of like that. Okay. That type of aspiration, you see. Whereas like I want what they have, right? I want what they have. Go watch the movie. It's fun. And so because you see them in a certain way and you see that they have some kind of good qualities, right? Things that you want, then you aspire to be like them, right? So you start learning, they start teaching you how to become like them, right? You see something good and you're like, well, that's different. That's cool. I want to do that. And then when they start talking about how they do it, you start to try to do those things, right? Now this is the second type of faith, right? You start trying to do it. But it's still not faith yet. It's not a full faith, right? And what I like about this word is that we're going to get to a place where faith is not something that you just believe in because your parents told you. Like that's how most people use the word faith. I have faith in Buddhism. I have faith in my God. You have faith in your God, right? I have a belief, right? I have a belief in this. But most times when people use faith, they use faith in a way that's, it's not, they haven't thought about it, right? They just were taught it. Or they're part of a group of people that just say that this is what we all believe in. We believe in democracy. We believe in whatever it is, right? I believe in my candidate. You believe in your candidate, right? So, but the second step is really about now I'm going to aspire to be like them. I'm going to try this. And over time, you have your successes and failures, right? You have your, like, if you're learning, you want to learn how to play the piano and, you put your hands on the keys and you're like, I don't know how to move my fingers, right? You practice and you learn all the different techniques. And then eventually over time, then you start having this facility, playing scales, playing arpeggios, playing simpler songs, more complicated chord progressions. And then eventually you just sit down and it's like you're playing Beethoven, right? And it's the same thing with because you know what to do. You understand that instrument, you understand the sounds, you understand the structures of it. And then what happens is you start moving into what we call like a conviction. Like you have done it enough and proved it to yourself that nobody can tell you otherwise. Where you just are bathed, subsumed like a tea in water or the sugar in the espresso. You are just that, right? You don't need anyone to tell you anything. You don't need someone to be like, hey, I got this new system. You're like, no, my system works fine. Thank you. Okay. That doesn't mean you don't listen to people and it doesn't mean you close off your mind to other things. That's not what I mean. But all of a sudden you have this conviction that this is the way, like the Mandalorian, this is the way. And there's nothing can convince you otherwise. And it's not like you have this faith that kind of blossomed out of blindness or out of just following what the herd is doing. You've tested it out yourself. You've reasoned it. You've put the 4 steps into practice. You've done all of these things. You've seen the results of it yourself, not made up, not because everybody else is doing it, but because you did it. Right? And that's what we're all trying to get towards, right? We're trying to get to this place where being a bodhisattva is an automatic thing. Automatic ACI, right? Automatic. Yeah, thank you, Sandra. There's Sally having her orgasm. In the chat, if you're not looking. Okay. So how does it become automatic? How does a bodhisattva live? Like, this is the opening lines of the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Okay, how's a bodhisattva supposed to live? Like, how are you supposed to be one? How do you get to be a modern bodhisattva? By the way, every bodhisattva is a modern bodhisattva because they're living in their time. That's why I like the t-shirt. But how do you get those attitudes inside of you? Because you didn't come to 12 ACI classes just because I'm not going to make any more jokes about it. You're not here just because, you have some kind of small hope. Your hope is big, right? You have a big hope and you have a big vision for what the world could be, And Geshe Michael said something really cool last night. And I don't remember exactly how he said it. I have the feeling, when something large and negative happens, right? How long do you just wallow in the self-misery of it? And then how long do you start focusing on using your creativity and innovation to serve more people? Right? What do you do when there's a long extended war? What do you do when your government changes and you don't like what's happening? What do you do when there's a natural disaster? Like, do you say, oh my God, my seeds are so terrible? Or do you go, huh, that's interesting. That's what today's like. Like, how do we take care of people? Like, if we didn't start teaching on Zoom during the pandemic, we wouldn't be doing this today, right? We could have just curled up and said, well, our seeds suck. We all have to stay at home by ourselves. So, okay. Right. Or we got creative at ACI and we were like, okay, what cool thing could we do now? Damn it, we all have to stay at home. Okay, let's just make a commitment to teach all ACI classes in all languages. And let's just do everything online. Sweet. Right? And so it's really like, and that was a great thing that came of that. Like, most of you came to ACI, a lot of you came to ACI because we did that. Right? So yeah, the pandemic sucked, but we didn't just curl up on a couch and whine about it. Right? Like, oh, let's just go teach people online. So what do you do in the face of disaster? That's the big question. What do you do when things don't go the right way, the way you wanted them to go? And when things don't go the way you want them to go, don't curl up and say, I'm such a bad person to have created this. My seeds are so bad. I must have been mean and a terrible person. Stop it. Okay. If what we said is true, you've lifetimes of good and bad lives. You've been everything. Why do you think you can dream just about anything, things that don't even look like your own lives? Because you've done it before. You've done all those things before, you see. So, but you may have done them like thousands and thousands of lifetimes ago. So don't be a bad person. You're not a bad person now. You just have bad seeds. We all do. So don't curl up. Just be like, here's a new opportunity. See. And so how do you get to that conviction? That's my question for today. Like, how do we get to it so it's automatic bodhisattva? How do you get there so that so you can be that living example? That's the question, right? Where you walk into a room and everyone's like, I'll have what she's having. Now, that doesn't mean you walk in a room and you fake an orgasm every time you walk in a room. That's not what I mean. Okay. What I mean is, like, you just do you. You be you. And then people are like, I want what they have. Like, hold on, I'm just looking for something from last night. Okay. Like when someone walks in the room, right? And you're like, how did they look like they're just, have you ever watched a yogi walk into a room and you're just like, they look like they're just floating on the floor? They barely look like they're walking. Or like a ballerina, and you're just like, that person just like is always dancing, right? And I don't mean you have to look like like the hot YSI yoga teachers. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, you walk in and your presence, the person that you are and the person you've become, is immediately a head turner where everyone goes, what? Like, and it's not it's not a question of ego, right? That's not what that is, right? It's a question of, how are you helping people even just with your presence? You just being there helps people. Like, you just being yourself, you walk in, you sit quietly in a chair, and people, like, you're inspiring people just by being you, right? And that's what a bodhisattva does, because then they're like, I want to have some of that. And then you find out, well, that person kind of teaches, come to this ACI class, right? Or YSI class, or DCI class, or DSEU, the university. But I don't care. I don't care what class you go to. Mixed nuts, whatever. Or some other lineage that's good. It doesn't matter. You know, because that's how a bodhisattva is, because a bodhisattva understands where it comes from, right? How do you get that automatic attitude in your mind? How does it become something where you are at ease and everyone's like, I want some of that, right? And that just, in a lot of ways, is just hard work. Sit for hours in class, sit for hours in class, sit for hours in class. Like, have these ideas, imbue yourself with these ideas. Be the tea bag in the water. Okay. And sometimes the water is boiling hot and it's uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult. Don't expect your bodhisattvic path to be balloons, rainbows, and unicorns. Okay. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's really difficult. You know, your karma will test you, certainly. But how do you get there? One is just put yourself in the water. Be the tea bag in the water, right? Just sit in it, right? Let the water infuse you, or you infuse the water. I don't know. Maybe it's both. You know, the other thing is then that your practice, you have to be practicing, right? You have to be doing it. Like, if you don't do the things, you won't become the thing. Okay. You know, I think it's the fourth law of karma, depending how you order them. Third law of karma is if you do it, you'll get the result. The fourth law of karma is if you don't do it, you won't. Right? If you want to assure yourself to never have the direct experience of emptiness, just don't meditate. Okay. It's okay. You don't have to. No one's forcing you. You know, don't keep your book. Don't watch the way that your mind works. Don't do the 4 powers. Don't do the 4 steps. If you want to assure that you don't have those experiences, don't have a teacher. Okay. If you don't want it, don't do it. But if you want it, a lot of times, this is where like guilt comes in. A lot of times people will say in the next sentence, will say, if you do want it, do it. Just do it. And then all of a sudden people are like, well, I can't do it the way they do it. I'm not a good enough practitioner. You know, I'm only doing half of the things that Tim said. I'll never get there. Don't do that as well. Okay. You know, you build things on top of each other. And eventually it becomes a habit. And eventually it becomes something that you just do automatically, where all you want to do is when you get up is sit in meditation. Right? You want to keep your book. You want to look for ways to help other people in bigger and better ways. You know, the reason I moved to this beautiful house, which you can kind of see the sun starting to rise, was so I could help more people. Right? And I may have gone a little bit too far because Geshe Michael announced yesterday we're going to have parties and dinner parties and teachings at my house, which I was honored about, but I'm also like, I want to be by myself. Right? Careful what you ask for as well, you know. But seriously, like the reason I have, you know, I got the house was so I could serve more people. right? I can have people here. I can have teachings here. It's a place that I want people to come to. No one came to my other house. I never invited anyone to my other house, right? It's not true, but it was a different person who got that house. But like, what are you doing here? Like, are you in a place that's, how to say this? Your house can be your sanctuary. It could be the place where you get enlightened, right? Why would you do it any other way, right? But so the thing is, that's not the thought that I would have had 10 years ago, right? But now I'm like, oh, I want cool stuff to happen in this house. This is where the magic will happen, right? And it just arose that way. I didn't have to try to get the house. My realtor called me and said, "Hey, check it out." I drove up. I'm like, "Oh, this is perfect." Right? And it was easy. Everything was easy. You see, so but to another person with different karma, it could be something entirely different. And that's the point I want to get to. Someone could walk into this house and be like, "This is stupid." Right? "This is ugly. I don't like it." Right? Someone could log into Zoom right now and be like, "Who is that idiot teaching right now?" I don't call that teaching. That's dumb. That person's not interesting. Log out. Right? Have you ever had that conversation and like you talk to people about your teacher and they're like, "That guy? I don't like, I mean, I don't like how he talks. I don't like how his voice sounds." I'm like, interesting. Right? To somebody else, that same blob of cells, right? Because that's all this really is, right? It's just meat and bones. That same meat and bones over there, to me, is a high bodhisattva teacher. To someone else, they're like, they see the same flesh and bones and they're like, "Who's that charlatan?" Or "Who's that? That person's voice annoys me. I can't even listen to their words." Right? So then what most people do is they start to defend themselves. They're like, "Oh my God, no, they're such a beautiful person. They're so kind. They take care of people. They never take any money. Any money they get, they give away." Right? They do all of those things. And another person is just like, whatever. Right? And then you get upset and then you want to fight them and you want to prove that that person is awesome. Right? Have you ever dated someone and your friends didn't like them? Well, maybe your friends were right. but you're in love with them. Your friend doesn't have to be in love with them, but it's just completely different karma. So how do you get the karma to have a paradise? Right? How do you get that? That's the question. So you wake up in the morning and you're like, "Yes, I'm in my paradise," or "I'm getting close." Where it just is automatic. Just an automatic thing. It's nothing else than that. Never was anything else than that. And that's why we study Shantideva. Right? That's why we study emptiness. Because things were never not empty. Things were never any other way. And when you take that one simple idea that to you, that person is a Arya Bodhisattva emanation of a Buddha designed to teach you, right? And to someone else, they're just some stupid schmuck, right? It just means idiot. Okay. Then what's the difference, right? Oh. Like, how do you get that emptiness attitude, which then necessarily brings you to a place of compassion, to then just be automatic? How does one get there? How does one get those attitudes? Because then once you get to that third level of conviction, that no one can take it away from you, those realizations can't be taken away because you're doing it yourself. And the how do I want to get there? I would say if you're not trying the practices in a consistent way, why are you here? Right? you know, and everybody's at their own place in their path. So again, don't judge anyone, right? Like, we were sitting in YSI a week ago, and Geshe Michael was giving us Sokrim completion stage practice, which is like highest yoga tantra practices, right? And he's giving it in an open YSI class. And I heard someone complain, I've been studying ACI for 15 years just to learn this. And now we're sitting in a class and there's all these hot young people from New York who've never studied at all getting completion stage practices. I was like, my first thought, I didn't share it. My first thought was, oh, you don't understand anything. The reason you got those teachings in the first place were because you had the karma to get them. And you got the karma to get them because you did the work. You were inspired. You did aspire. You had the motivation to get there. And then your karma ripened for that to happen. And then you're complaining that that new student over there is getting the same teachings. Who are they? Like, you got to add another layer to this. So your teacher is empty, but that person's not empty. Oh, that person's just a self-existent young student who's immature and doesn't know anything getting completion stage practice. I'm sorry, you don't even know what that person heard. You can't prove that that person heard the same class that you heard. You have no idea what that person heard. That person may not have heard completion stage practice. That person may have been thinking about their boyfriend, right? That person may have heard a bunch of other blah, blah. Or that person is just another part of your perfect paradise teaching you that you haven't figured out where things come from. That person showed up just specifically for you to see how good your understanding really was. Young, hot yogini from New York, right? Getting completion stage practice, highest yoga practice there is, right? And they haven't even studied karma and emptiness. Oh, who hasn't studied karma and emptiness, dummy? You need to go back to ACI 12. You need to go back to ACI 5. You need to go back to the 3 principal paths. Okay. Why are you judging them? The more judgments you pass on people, the more you're going to block your advancement. Okay. So what attitude should you have with that person? Do they look like they're 20 years younger than you? Yes. Are they from New York? Yes. Are they a hot yogini? Well, for me, maybe for them, I don't know, right? You're like young and hot, right? Perfect. Yes, they are all those things. But why do I see it that way? Right? If you study emptiness long enough, you could look at them and be like, what else could they be? Someone else might be like, oh God, there's people from New York. They're so arrogant. By the way, they're not, but this is an example. Like, oh, those people from the city, they think their city is the only city there is. Okay. Right? You don't think they're hot. You just think they're a little pretentious. I'm not going to use the words that are coming out of my mouth. Okay. But because they have an emptiness too, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe they're an emanation of a Buddha just sent there specifically for you to see how strong your understanding is. Or they're actually teaching you that you have a little bit more to go. Right? So are they really the 20-year-old from New York? Or are they really an emanation of a Buddha? Which one are they? And this is also where somewhat people fall in Vajrayana practice. Because they say, oh, they are a Buddha. Right? Oh, really? They're a Buddha from their own side? Oh, everyone's a Buddha. Everyone's an emanation. Everybody's teaching me. It's good to have that attitude, right? But it's also like, if you get locked in self-existence, the attitude won't embed itself deeply inside you. The attitude's not self-existent either. That state of mind that could look at something, at someone, and see the potential to be anything is also something that's coming from a karma. There's no self-existent attitude that you're trying to get where you have a self-existent conviction in the teachings. Okay. There's nothing there that has a nature of being anything. And that's why it can have a nature. And Kathy said it really well. If you really understand this, the person that you become is that you become very humble. You become open and available. You have a lot of integrity, right? Because it forces you to understand the things that you see. Which did I see first? The Buddha in the room? Or did I see the 20-year-old that's getting completion stage practice when I've studied for 20 years and I'm better than them because I studied and they haven't? Which one did I see first? Right? They saw that first. That's the karma. That's the karma that came out. And then the next thing that came out was, oh, wait, there's a potential there that they could be somebody else, right? 2 different karmas arose at different times, right? And that's where your practice goes. What am I really seeing? Right? What am I really seeing? You aren't really seeing anything, okay, first of all. But it appears to you and it's real. And it's as unreal as it is real. And you got to think about it. How would you treat that that person who you quietly judged in your mind from across the room, and then you realize they had a different potential, they had a potential to be somebody else? How would you treat them after that? I mean, first of all, stop it. You should be happy you're sitting in a class where someone's giving you the highest teachings to get you out of samsara. Fastest, most dangerous, most difficult, potentially incredible. And you're complaining about other people in the room. But I wanted to be the first person to do it. Great. Thank you, ego. Wouldn't it make the world a lot better if that 20-year-old got out of suffering at 20 versus at 60? Wouldn't it have been nice not to go through most of your life and have to suffer the way you had to suffer? You should be like, yo, good job. Pat them on the back. Like, inspire them. Give them more hope. You see, if you really, really get it, the way you treat people becomes easy. You don't have another choice. You don't have other choices. I mean, you do have choices, but you don't choose them. Right? But this attitude, emptiness, necessarily brings you to a place of questioning everything that you see. Is it the way that I see it? And if I could see it differently, if there were different karma arising, if I were a being with a different karma, what would appear to me? Would it appear like a war, or would it appear like a paradise? That's really hard to do. And a lot of people don't get beyond that point because the war becomes too difficult. The war becomes too difficult in their own mind and heart because it's too heavy. But people who are in war with themselves or in, war-torn areas, they get renunciation. They understand. They understand the depths of it. So what's coming next? We have a very wonderful class showing up probably in January. We just got the schedule released for 2025. Thank you. Okay. We're probably going to start a beautifully difficult class in January called ACI 13. If you thought ACI 12 was hard, ACI 13, I'm trying to come up with a way to make it fun. So I'll figure something out. But it's all logic. All logic. This class is extremely powerful. Oh, you just put on fun hats. Good. The class is incredibly powerful because it teaches you to be able to apply emptiness when you're stuck. It teaches you to apply all of these ideas when things get difficult. Because if you understand how to think clearly, you can clearly move your way through any difficult situation. That's my pitch for ACI 13. Do you want to get stronger? Do you want to have a stronger mind? Do you want to have a stronger heart? That's ACI 14. ACI 13 is clear thinking. But then it gets you into a clear heart. Okay. And Natalia said it well. Good. Just be confused. Okay. It doesn't matter if you understand it or not. It's meant to challenge your mind. It's meant to challenge you into thinking differently. So we're going to start that in January. The schedule for that will come out very soon. So we're going to be finishing course 13, 14, and 15 next year. So you will have done all the content courses. All right. Then the following year, we're going to do 16, 17, and 18. And I have a way, I want to teach that a little bit differently as well. So we're going to make that review year a lot of fun. It's important to go through all the material again. Okay. Because then those attitudes start seeping into you more and more. Because after that, we are going to start the Diamond Way. And I'm telling you now, you have to have your 18 courses done, really done, not fake done, but really done. Okay. Because it helps. First of all, Octavian, you will, yes, for the schedule has been out, but each organization will release its schedule when they do. ACIs will be released shortly. So the review of all the material is also a way for me to get to know you better, right? And it's very I mean, there's a beautifulness and a difficulty to Zoom teachings. One is that we really don't know each other, right? You need to really, whether I become your Diamond Way teacher or you have another teacher in mind, or you think it's me, but then in a week you're like, actually, I just met my Diamond Way teacher over there in a different class, that's okay. This isn't, you need to establish that relationship with somebody else, right? Who is that person? Maybe you feel like it might be someone, but you're not sure yet. You're not sure if you want to do it. That's okay too. But who is that person for you? And if you feel like that person is someone who's not going to teach Diamond Way again in the traditional way, but you can find another teacher who can be a substitute teacher. There's all these cool things you can do because of emptiness. So we're going to be moving into that, and things begin to accelerate in those teachings. So just preparing you for what's coming. It's still a couple years away, but a couple years will go by very quickly. All right. But you need to have that personal relationship. You have to, like, it doesn't work otherwise. Maybe it's just over Zoom. I don't know. Change your karma. But we've been talking about it in general. We're going to be able to teach on Zoom because traditionally Diamond Way was not taught had to be in person. There's a power to being in person. And the cool thing about Zoom is it allows us not to be in person because it's expensive, it's difficult, it's challenging, right? But just planting that seed a little bit for you, right? If it's something you want to do. I mean, not everybody wants to go that way. The 18 courses are enough. You can make the 18 courses your primary practice for the rest of your life. No problem. And you will automatically move into Diamond Way teachings anyway if you practice them well. So don't think that they're not Diamond Way classes. Get it? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. I just want to thank all of you for coming. Like, we have 50 people here in class, right? This is hard. I mean, we started with over 120 people when we did ACI 1, maybe 150, right? It takes, you should be, this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, is you really just be happy that you were able to do this. Be happy that your karma allowed you to keep coming to the classes, that you're able to get here, right? You know, this is the first part of Shanti Deva's dedication, is just think about the good things that you do. All right. And from time to time, if you are my student, I will tell you that you're doing good things sometimes. Okay. Every once in a while, I'll remind you. I make it difficult on you too. So, but I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be difficult. Because your karma is making me be difficult towards you. So change your karma. But I really want you all to think about that. It's such an amazing blessing to be able to come to a class like this. We have 50 people here. To be able to hear these teachings is an amazing karma. The good things that you do day in and day out also, right? You don't think about them very much. Like, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like we have 7 languages right now. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 languages, including English. All right. Interpreters, you work so hard. Like, a normal interpreter works for 20 minutes and then they flip. Like, that's usually the limit, right? You do hour and a half, 2-hour classes. Like, be happy, rejoice in that. You're spreading the Dharma to so many people, right? Or if you don't have a lot of people in your language group, you are making it available to them in the future, which is exactly the same as doing it now anyway. So your karma is, you're getting those seeds when you're 80 years old and you can't interpret anymore, you know, but your class that you translated in 2024 on November 22nd is being listened to somebody. You're getting the seeds for that. Still getting them. Good job. All right. All the tech people, right? All the people who record each and every class in all the languages, right? You're doing the same thing. Your job doesn't end at the end of class. You have to let Zoom process it. Then you have to upload it. Then we have people like Anna, right? Who then upload all those things to YouTube. And then she puts it into the platform and then makes it available for everybody so they can watch the class afterwards, right? Then we have all the ACI staff. Well, first of all, we have Laura Bordera, who's translating in Spanish, and she's our language manager, right? We have Anastasia, who also works in ACI, right? We have a whole team of people that are organizing all of this and working many, many hours on this. If you don't know how to rejoice in yourself, rejoice in what they're doing, okay? You get 10% of the karma. I actually argue you get 100% of it because it's you who sees it. Because you could look at someone and be like, they're not working hard at all, right? But rejoice in what other people do. We have Marina Kazakova, who runs a lot of these classes. She just appears all around the world. I don't know how she survives. I don't even know how she makes any money, but she volunteers all the time. She's everywhere in ACI, right? She's set up the Zoom hosts, organizes lots of things and schedules. Like, rejoice in her. Marina, rejoice in yourself, right? Svetlana's over here. I can see her. She works primarily for Ale. Tons of stuff she does. She sends me messages to remind me about things, right? Because I'm terrible at calendars. We have Natalia Pashutina, who doesn't have her camera on, Natalia, but she runs our teacher trainings, right? Look at all the beautiful things. And I could go on. There's other people here I could talk about. Someone wants to help ACI. Kathy wants to help ACI, right? You see, someone else you're not seeing is Gina Rivera, another ACI volunteer and staff member who's always around doing stuff. And she's a joy and delight to be around. She's hysterical. There's Gina. Here she is. Let's spotlight Gina. There's Gina. Okay, you see. So, rejoice in all of those things. Rejoice in those things that people do, right? Now, that's the first part of dedication. Just freaking rejoice. Just rejoice in the things that think about it, because the more you think about it, the more those seeds grow. All right. Secondly, where do you put those seeds? Where do you like, yes, they go into you and they're in your heart, and that's fine. But what if you gave them away as best as you could? How could you give those seeds away? Because giving things away is where, that's where they come from, because you gave it away. And Shantideva has there's a really amazing advice in this. And who is that person who helps you the most? Who is that person? I'm thinking of the one in my life, right, who seems to be teaching me more and more and more, and at the same time seems to be getting older and older, right? I don't want them to leave. I don't want my teacher to leave, right? And that's my seeds to see it that way. But what if I dedicated the good things that I do, the good things I see, to their long life? That they keep these beautiful teachings in the world. They keep these beautiful ideas about emptiness and compassion in the world. They're the ones that are doing it, dedicated to their long life. Send them out. Send those seeds out like a ripple of water, like a ripple, like when you drop a stone in the water and you see the ripples go out from your own heart as you're planting those seeds. See them ripple out, and send them maybe to your teacher for a long life, or send them out to, may this grow into the thing that will help the most people. May this grow into deep wisdom and realization. May this be a seed that could serve as a cause to total enlightenment. And because of emptiness, every seed could do that. Every single thing you think, say, and do could be a cause for that, if you had the right attitude behind it. Yes, and I finished 10 seconds before the end of class. Thank you, everybody. It's such a joy for all of you to be here, and that's what gets me up at 5:30 in the morning before the sun rises, because I know you want to learn and you want to be here. So, schedule's coming up very soon for the rest of the year. I hope that everyone will join at least online in Kyoto. We're going to do some rebroadcasts for time zones, but it's going to be an amazing, amazing class, and I hope that you all can join. So just want to say thank you once again to all of you for wanting to do this. We're going to just dive in next year with ACI 13. So again, thank you. And please say goodbye to each other and wish you all a very wonderful rest of the year and see you soon.
Thank you.
Ďakujeme.
Gracias, muchas
Bolo to
gracias, maestro
krásne.
Tim.
Všetko dobré.
Por favor,
Do
quédate,
nového
por
roka.
favor, quédate.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank
You taught
you.
us a beautiful teaching today. Thank you so
Goodbye.
much for incredible course.
Teaching.
Thank you. Please
Please
stay.
teach us ACI 13.
Quang Thai.
Aj za Slovensko.
Please
谢谢
stay,
老
please
师。
stay, please stay.
Please stay, please stay,
Zostaň
please stay.
učiť.
Have a good day. See you guys soon.
Oh, chơi với chị Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Đôi.